Millionaire freezes as black girl fixes his $30 million Rolls-Royce, then notices the ring of his late wife. In the steam rising from a disabled $30 million Rolls-Royce, two worlds prepare to intersect in ways neither could anticipate. Edward Hartwell, a media mogul worth $900 million, finds himself stranded outside an inner-city community center where his assumptions about capability and worth are about to be fundamentally challenged. When 17-year-old Zara approaches with the confident competence of someone who understands that problems exist to be solved, their encounter begins a journey of recognition that transcends automotive repair. Sometimes the most profound discoveries emerge not from boardrooms or laboratories, but from moments when vulnerability meets capability and human potential reveals itself in the most unexpected places. Edward Hartwell sat motionless in the driver's seat of his custom Phantom 8, watching steam rise from beneath the hood like incense from a broken altar. The $30 million vehicle had chosen this precise moment, outside an inner-city community center, to remind him that even perfection could fail. At 65, he had built a media empire worth $900 million, yet found himself stranded in a neighborhood his GPS had reluctantly guided him through. The irony wasn't lost on him. A man who owned 3 private jets couldn't get his car to start in a place where public transportation served as lifeline rather than inconvenience. His perfectly tailored suit felt absurd against the backdrop of chain-link fences and weathered storefronts, making him acutely aware of how far he had traveled from the modest beginnings that had once grounded his understanding of struggle and resilience. The community center buzzed with afternoon activity. Children's voices carried through open windows. Teenagers gathered on the front steps with the easy camaraderie of shared experiences. Elderly residents moved with purposeful dignity despite obvious economic constraints. Edward observed this world through his tinted windows, noting the careful maintenance of limited resources, the way people looked out for each other with casual vigilance, the sense of connection that his wealth had somehow insulated him from experiencing. His phone displayed 17 missed calls from assistants and board members, but the silence inside his disabled vehicle created an unexpected pause in the relentless machinery of his professional life. For the first time in months, perhaps years, he was simply present in a moment without agenda or control, vulnerable in ways that money couldn't shield him from experiencing. A soft knock on his passenger window startled him from his contemplation. Through the glass, he saw a young black woman, perhaps 17 years old, gesturing toward the hood of his car with the confident body language of someone who recognized a problem she could solve. Her coveralls bore the stains of honest work. Her natural hair was pulled back practically, and her eyes held the kind of intelligence that emerges from necessity rather than privilege. Edward hesitated, his ingrained social conditioning warring with his immediate need for assistance. He had never interacted with someone like her except through the filtered distance of charity galas and tax-deductible donations. Yet something in her direct gaze suggested capabilities that transcended the assumptions his world had taught him to make about young people from neighborhoods like this one. Rolling down the window required him to bridge more than just physical glass. It meant acknowledging his vulnerability to someone society had taught him to view as fundamentally different from himself. "Looks like you might be having some trouble," she said, her voice carrying the practical kindness of someone accustomed to helping without expectation of reward. Her observation was gentle but direct, offering assistance without the servility he had come to expect from those who recognized his wealth and status. In that simple exchange, Edward felt something shift, not dramatically, but like a subtle recalibration of perspective that would prove more significant than either of them could anticipate. The community center continued its afternoon rhythm around them, but within the confined space of his disabled Rolls-Royce, two worlds prepared to intersect in ways that would challenge everything he thought he understood about capability, dignity, and the nature of genuine human connection. "I'm Zara," she said simply, already moving toward the front of the vehicle with the purposeful stride of someone who had learned to trust her own capabilities. Edward emerged from his car feeling oddly displaced in his expensive suit, watching as this teenager examined his $30 million machine with the clinical attention of a physician assessing symptoms. Her hands moved over the engine components with surprising familiarity, her fingers tracing connections and checking systems with the kind of knowledge that comes from genuine understanding rather than theoretical study. She spoke quietly to herself as she worked, identifying problems with a vocabulary that revealed deep mechanical comprehension, her assessment both methodical and intuitive in ways that impressed him despite his initial skepticism about her qualifications to address such sophisticated engineering. The community center's auto shop teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, appeared at Edward's shoulder with the protective awareness of someone who understood both the promise and vulnerability of his students. "Zara's our best mechanic," he explained with obvious pride, his voice carrying the satisfaction of an educator who had witnessed exceptional talent emerge from challenging circumstances. "She's been working on engines since she was 12, started with lawn mowers, and moved up to European luxury vehicles. Most kids her age are still learning basic maintenance, but she understands automotive systems like some people understand music." His words carried weight that extended beyond simple bragging about a student's achievements, revealing instead the kind of recognition that emerges when educators witness extraordinary capability flourishing despite systemic barriers designed to limit opportunity and possibility. Edward watched Zara work with growing fascination, noting the economy of her movements, the confidence with which she diagnosed problems that would have required specialized dealership equipment to identify. Her approach combined technical precision with intuitive understanding, treating the complex machine not as a status symbol, but as a sophisticated puzzle whose solution required patience, knowledge, and respect for engineering excellence. She spoke occasionally to Mr. Rodriguez in technical language that revealed years of serious study, her questions demonstrating the kind of intellectual curiosity that drives innovation rather than mere competence. The contrast between her obvious expertise and the assumptions Edward's world would make about her capabilities created a cognitive dissonance that forced him to question fundamental beliefs about intelligence, opportunity, and the distribution of talent across social boundaries. When Zara requested permission to check the electrical system, Edward found himself nodding before consciously processing her request, drawn into the narrative of problem-solving that had transformed his mechanical crisis into an unexpected education about human potential. She worked with the kind of focused intensity he recognized from his own most productive moments, her attention completely absorbed by the challenge before her while remaining aware of the broader context. The expensive vehicle, the worried owner, the need to demonstrate competence in ways that would honor both her own capabilities and her teacher's investment in her development. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who understood that every action carried consequences, that her performance in this moment would influence not just Edward's opinion, but potentially her own future opportunities to demonstrate what she could achieve when given the chance to show her full capabilities. As Zara worked deeper into the engine bay, Edward noticed something that made his breath catch in his throat. On her right hand, worn with the casual familiarity of daily use, was a ring that seemed impossible in this context, an antique platinum band set with a distinctive sapphire surrounded by diamonds in a pattern he recognized with devastating clarity. The ring had belonged to his late wife, Margaret, stolen during a burglary at their estate 3 years ago. The police had recovered most of the jewelry, but several pieces, including Margaret's favorite ring, had never been found. Now, impossibly, it graced the hand of this young woman who was expertly diagnosing problems with his $30 million vehicle, creating a moment of recognition so profound it threatened to reshape everything he thought he understood about loss, connection, and the mysterious ways that precious things find their way back into the world. The sight of Margaret's ring triggered a flood of memories that had nothing to do with material value and everything to do with love, loss, and the sudden understanding that some connections transcend ordinary explanation. Margaret had worn that ring daily for 43 years of marriage, her hands growing more delicate with age while the platinum band remained constant, a symbol of commitment that had outlasted youth, health, and ultimately life itself. Edward had mourned its loss almost as deeply as he mourned Margaret herself, understanding that the ring carried emotional weight that no insurance settlement could restore. Seeing it now, worn with obvious care by someone who couldn't possibly know its history, created a moment of such profound displacement that he questioned whether grief had finally affected his perception of reality. Yet as he watched Zara continue her work, Edward began to understand that this moment was not about the ring's return, but about its journey. How Margaret's most cherished possession had found its way to the hand of someone whose own gifts deserved recognition and support. The ring seemed to bridge worlds that had never touched before, connecting his loss to this young woman's potential in ways that felt both miraculous and inevitable. Margaret had always believed that precious things were meant to serve life rather than simply display wealth, that true value emerged through use and meaning rather than possession and security. Perhaps the ring's presence on Zara's hand was not accident but purpose, a reminder that Margaret's values had always emphasized nurturing potential rather than accumulating possessions. The realization grew slowly, like dawn breaking over familiar landscapes seen for the first time. Edward's grief, which had isolated him in wealth and memory, suddenly connected him to someone whose capabilities and character would have delighted Margaret beyond measure. The ring became a bridge rather than a barrier, linking his past love to present possibility in ways that transformed loss into opportunity for connection and growth. As Zara announced that she had identified the problem and could repair it using parts from the shop's inventory, Edward understood that he was witnessing something far more significant than automotive maintenance. He was seeing Margaret's ring continue its journey of adding beauty and meaning to the world through the hands of someone who deserved every opportunity to flourish and succeed. "That's a beautiful ring," Edward said quietly, his voice carrying emotions he couldn't yet fully articulate. Zara paused in her work, glancing down at her hand with the kind of protective awareness that emerges when something precious is noticed by someone whose intentions remain unclear. "Thank you," she replied carefully, her response measuring the safety of sharing personal information with a stranger whose wealth and status created obvious power imbalances. "It belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me when she passed last year." Her words were simple but carried depths of meaning that resonated with Edward's own experience of loss, creating an unexpected moment of shared understanding about the ways that precious things carry love forward through time and across generations of care and memory. Edward felt his worldview shifting as he processed this information, understanding that the ring's journey had been even more complex than he had imagined. His initial assumption about theft and recovery gave way to a more nuanced understanding of how valuable objects move through economic systems, how estate sales and pawn shops and secondhand markets create pathways for precious things to find new homes and meanings. Zara's grandmother had somehow acquired Margaret's ring through perfectly legitimate means, had treasured it enough to designate it as inheritance for her granddaughter, had passed along not just jewelry, but the responsibility of caring for something beautiful in a world that often overlooked beauty in places like this neighborhood. The conversation that followed revealed layers of connection that neither had anticipated when their worlds first intersected over a disabled engine. Zara spoke about her grandmother with the kind of love that transcended material circumstances, describing a woman who had worked multiple jobs to support her family while maintaining faith in education, hard work, and the fundamental dignity of all people regardless of their social position. Edward found himself sharing memories of Margaret, describing her commitment to supporting young people's potential, her belief that true wealth lay in nurturing capabilities rather than accumulating possessions. Their exchange created a bridge between past and present, between loss and hope, between the values that connected them despite the vast differences in their circumstances and opportunities. As Zara completed the repair work with quiet competence, Edward realized that Margaret's ring had found exactly the right hands. Someone who honored its beauty while using her own capabilities to solve problems and help others. Someone whose character would have impressed and delighted Margaret beyond measure. The ring's presence became less about possession and ownership than about continuation and connection, linking Margaret's values to Zara's potential in ways that created opportunity for both healing and growth. The repair was complete, but the relationship that had formed around shared loss and mutual recognition was just beginning, built on foundations that neither had expected to discover in the intersection of mechanical crisis and human possibility. The conversation that began over automotive repair evolved into something far more significant as Edward learned about Zara's dreams and challenges, her exceptional capabilities and limited opportunities. She spoke about her passion for engineering with the kind of intellectual excitement that transcended economic circumstances, describing innovative solutions to mechanical problems and theoretical advances in automotive design that revealed thinking far beyond her years and formal education. Her applications to engineering programs had been submitted with scholarship hopes and academic credentials that impressed admissions committees, yet financial barriers remained formidable despite her obvious qualifications and potential. Edward listened with growing amazement and recognition, understanding that he was witnessing exactly the kind of exceptional mind that Margaret had always believed deserved support and opportunity regardless of social background or economic position. The decision to invest in Zara's education emerged not from charity, but from recognition, understanding that her capabilities represented precisely the kind of innovation and excellence that his own businesses needed, that supporting her development would benefit not just her future, but the broader advancement of engineering and design. Edward's offer was comprehensive but respectful, covering tuition, living expenses, and research opportunities while allowing Zara to maintain autonomy over her educational choices and career direction. His proposal included summer internships at his technology companies, mentorship relationships with leading engineers, and access to research facilities that would allow her to explore the theoretical questions that had always fascinated her, but remained practically inaccessible given her financial limitations. Zara's response demonstrated the same thoughtful precision she had applied to diagnosing his engine problems, weighing opportunities against potential dependencies, ensuring that acceptance would enhance rather than compromise her long-term goals and independence. Her questions revealed strategic thinking that impressed Edward with its sophistication and maturity, her concerns showing the kind of careful consideration that successful entrepreneurs learn to apply to major decisions. Their negotiation became a collaboration rather than a transaction, built on mutual respect and shared understanding that this investment was meant to amplify existing potential rather than create obligation or debt. The agreement they reached honored both Edward's desire to support exceptional talent and Zara's determination to earn her achievements through capability rather than charity. Margaret's ring remained on Zara's hand, now carrying additional meaning as a symbol of connection between past love and future possibility, between loss transformed into opportunity and potential finally given space to flourish. The community center's auto shop, where their paths had first crossed, became the launching point for a journey that would take Zara to engineering programs and research opportunities that matched her extraordinary capabilities while keeping her connected to the community that had nurtured her initial development and continued to shape her values and perspective. 2 years later, Edward stood in the MIT engineering laboratory where Zara conducted research on sustainable automotive systems, watching her present findings to professors and industry leaders who recognized her work as genuinely innovative and practically significant. Her transition from community center mechanic to research engineer had been seamless not because the path was easy, but because her capabilities had finally found appropriate context and support. The ring still graced her hand, now joined by academic honors and professional recognition that reflected her exceptional mind finally given opportunity to demonstrate its full potential. Her research combined theoretical sophistication with practical understanding, drawing from her early experience with mechanical repair to inform innovative approaches to engineering challenges that had stymied more traditionally educated researchers. The relationship between Edward and Zara had evolved beyond mentor and student into genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared passion for innovation and excellence. Her perspectives on business strategy, informed by her understanding of community needs and practical constraints, had influenced several of Edward's technology investments in ways that improved both profitability and social impact. Their collaboration demonstrated the profound benefits that emerge when exceptional minds are given opportunity to contribute their unique insights and capabilities to challenges that require both technical expertise and deep understanding of human needs and real-world applications. Margaret's ring had become a symbol not just of love continued, but of values enacted. The belief that precious things gain meaning through use rather than possession, that true wealth emerges through supporting potential rather than accumulating objects, that the most profound investments are those that nurture human capability and dignity. The community center's auto shop had been upgraded with equipment that Edward provided, creating opportunities for other young people to develop their mechanical and engineering interests while maintaining connection to the neighborhood that shaped their values and perspectives. Most significantly, Zara's success had opened pathways for other exceptional young people whose talents had been overlooked by traditional educational and professional systems. The scholarship program she and Edward developed together identified and supported students whose capabilities transcended their circumstances, creating a network of innovation and excellence that drew strength from diversity of experience and perspective. Their story had become a reminder that the most extraordinary discoveries often emerge from the most unexpected encounters, that human potential exists everywhere waiting for recognition and support, and that the most meaningful legacies are built through investing in others' possibilities rather than accumulating personal achievements. The disabled Rolls-Royce that had brought them together remained in Zara's care, now serving as a mobile laboratory for her research and a symbol of the moment when two worlds intersected to create something neither could have achieved alone. The ring that connected Edward's loss to Zara's future became a symbol of how precious things find their purpose through service rather than possession, how true wealth multiplies when invested in human potential rather than accumulated in isolation. Their story reminds us that extraordinary capabilities exist everywhere, waiting only for recognition and opportunity to flourish. In a world that often overlooks talent based on surface assumptions, what remarkable discoveries might await when we approach every encounter with curiosity rather than judgment.